Hey, it's Alex, and this time, I'm bringing you a story that sounds like it was made up for clicks. Laos, somewhere deep beyond Luang Prabang. A place no guidebook will mention. A place I wasn't supposed to know about. It all started with a rumor. I was in northern Laos, drinking tea with a French anthropologist I met in a mountain guest house. We were swapping travel stories, the kind you can't post online. He leaned in and said, "There's a village not far from here. Mostly women, no men over 20. Some say it's because of the war. Others say it's by design. They don't like visitors, especially men." I raised an eyebrow. He handed me a scratched notebook. Inside was a rough map. A dot marked, Ban Namchan. The next day, I found a local driver willing to take me partway. The rest I had to hike, 3 hours into mist-covered hills, through bamboo forests and muddy goat trails. I got stung by something I couldn't see. I lost signal. I almost turned back. But then, it appeared, wooden houses built on stilts, prayer flags fluttering, and smoke curling from clay chimneys. Children ran barefoot. Dogs barked. Chickens scattered. But something was missing. Men. No adult men in sight. Just women, strong, calm, alert, watching me like I was the plot twist in a story they already knew. I approached slowly, hands open. A young woman stepped forward. She had dark eyes and an old soul. She didn't smile, but she nodded. Her name was Nai. She spoke a little Thai, and I spoke enough to understand. I was allowed to stay one night. No camera, no loud talking, no questions about the men. I agreed. And just like that, I entered a village few outsiders ever see. That night, by candlelight, I sat in a circle of women preparing sticky rice and herbs. Nai translated their words. They asked where I was from, why I had come, if I was married. They giggled at my clumsy Lao. But under the laughter was something else, something heavier. I learned that the Lapa, the ethnic group here, had lived in isolation for generations. During the Indochina War, many men were taken. Some never returned. Others left and never looked back. The women remained. And over time, they built a world without men. Not a matriarchy, not a utopia, something in between, quiet, balanced, fiercely protective. They farm, they build, they raise children. If boys stay, they must follow the village rules. Many leave by age 18. Few come back. That night, Nai whispered to me, "You'll leave tomorrow. But don't forget this place. We are real." And she was right, because what I saw there, it changed me. I woke to the sound of pounding, rhythmic, soft, almost musical. It was just past dawn, and the mountains were still wrapped in fog. Outside my bamboo hut, the village was already alive. Women moved gracefully through their routines like parts of a well-oiled machine. No shouting, no chaos, just motion. Nai met me barefoot, holding 2 small bowls of morning soup, thin, salty, nourishing. She handed one to me and pointed to a path between 2 stilt houses. "Come, you help, you learn." And so I followed. What I experienced that day felt like stepping into a life lived parallel to the world I knew. The women of Ban Namchan worked in harmony, each task flowing into the next. They cooked communally, gathered medicinal herbs, tended rice fields, taught children, and repaired roofs with dexterity that would humble any construction crew I'd ever filmed. What shocked me wasn't what they lacked, it was what they didn't need. No mirrors, no clocks, no division of labor by gender. Everything was shared. Time wasn't watched, it was felt. In the afternoon, Nai brought me to the edge of a forest clearing where 3 older women were grinding bark into powder. She explained it was for a ritual, one that happens only under specific lunar conditions. I was lucky, tonight was one of those nights. I wasn't told what the ritual was. I wasn't invited to participate. I was allowed to watch, from a distance. That evening, the women gathered in a circle around a low fire. The air turned electric. I sat quietly on the outer edge, heart pounding. They wore deep red woven cloth, faces painted with natural dye, their hair braided with thin copper wire. It wasn't decorative. It was armor, memory, story. One woman began to sing, not with melody, but with tone. A chant, low and trembling, like thunder caught in a throat. Others joined. Together, their voices filled the trees. Nai whispered beside me, "We call the sky to remember us." Then came the smoke. Bark and herbs were tossed into the fire, releasing an aroma so thick I tasted it in my throat. The women danced, slow and circling, stomping the earth with bare feet in unison. It was not for performance. It was not for tourists. It was for them, for the dead, for the ones who left, for the strength to continue. When it was over, they collapsed into a quiet pile of breath and bodies. The fire hissed, the stars blinked, and I sat frozen, not because it was strange, but because it was sacred. That night, Nai sat beside me and said, "You think our world is sad? It's not. We chose this." And for the first time, I believed her. Because in their silence, I heard a power louder than anything I'd known. The next morning, I joined a group of girls who were weaving mats from dried palm leaves under a large tree. They were young, between 9 and 15, and unlike the older women, they were curious. Nai had told them I was a traveler from a big city where buildings were taller than trees and people had machines that spoke. They laughed when I showed them my cracked phone. One asked if I had a wife. Another wanted to know what a university was. They weren't shy. They weren't scared. They were bright, funny, and full of questions, but none of the ones I expected. Instead, they asked me, "Do girls in your country choose their own lives?" The question was soft, but it hit hard. I paused. I wanted to say yes. But the truth is more complicated. I told them, some do. Some are still learning how. They looked at each other, processing that. Then one girl, the boldest, said, "Here, we don't wait for men. We build what we need." And they did. These girls were learning to farm, to stitch, to treat fevers with leaves. They memorized star patterns, how to catch fish without hooks, how to carry babies and stories on the same back. They were being raised to live without permission. Later that day, I saw one of them practicing archery with a bamboo bow. Her focus was total. When I asked what she was aiming for, she said, "Balance." Nai later told me some of the girls had never seen a car. A few had been taken once to the nearest market town, and came back dazed by the noise. One cried when she saw a TV for the first time, not from wonder, but confusion. Out there, Nai said, they teach girls to please. In here, we teach them to lead. The sun set quietly that night. The girls danced for fun this time, not for ritual. Someone brought out a small hand drum. They played, they laughed, they looked free, and I, a man from a world full of freedom, realized I was seeing something we rarely teach, how to belong to yourself. As I watched them, I wrote in my journal, they don't dream of escaping. They dream of growing. That night, one of the girls slipped me a bracelet made of woven vine. A gift, no words, just trust. I wore it for the rest of my time in Laos. By the fourth day, something changed. Not in the village, but in me. The rhythm of Ban Namchan had gotten under my skin. I no longer checked the time. My phone stayed off. I woke with the chickens, ate what was offered, and worked where I was needed. I became a quiet part of the background, a shadow learning to listen. But there was one rule I hadn't broken. One thing they asked of me from the beginning, do not ask where the men are. And I hadn't, until that night. It started with a story. We were sitting around a low fire, Nai, a few elders, and myself. One of the older women, her face carved with age and smoke, began to hum a tune. It turned into a chant. Nai translated softly, she sings of the mountain, how it watches us. How it takes and gives. The air was thick with smoke and mystery. And something in me, maybe too much comfort, maybe too much wine, made me whisper, why do the men really leave? Silence. Nai looked at me, not angry, but heavy. The older woman stopped singing. And then, in the quiet, Nai spoke. Because we asked him to. I froze. She continued, there was a time when they made rules. Took more food, beat their wives, took girls too young. It is not all men. But it was enough. After the war, we said, no more. Some stayed and changed. Most left. We didn't stop them. The fire crackled. I couldn't tell if I was supposed to feel shocked or ashamed. Then she added, now, if a man is born here, he is raised to be different. Or he leaves. It was radical, honest, brave, and it explained so much, the calm, the harmony, the quiet authority in every gesture of the women. Later that night, I stepped away from the hut to look at the stars. The forest was alive with chirps and rustles, and I heard soft footsteps behind me. It was Nai. She stood beside me and said, you are not like the men we remember. But you are still a man. Then she looked at the vine bracelet on my wrist and added, that means your words stay here. I nodded. I understood, and in that moment, I felt like I had crossed a line, not of offense, but of initiation. They had shown me the truth. The raw truth. It wasn't a secret, it was survival, and with it came responsibility. The next morning, no one mentioned what happened. But when I helped carry firewood, they gave me more to hold. When I helped cook, they let me stir. When I laughed, they laughed back. Something had shifted, and I was no longer of the day I left Ban Namchan. The sky was overcast. A thin mist draped the village like a veil. It felt like the place itself didn't want to be seen too clearly, like it knew I would try to explain it one day, and wanted to blur the memory just enough to protect its truth. I packed my small bag slowly. No one rushed me. No one said goodbye, until Nai appeared. She handed me a cloth pouch, woven in red and black. Inside was a piece of obsidian, smooth and cold. "It's from the mountain," she said. "We carry one when we are far from home." I asked her, will I ever be allowed back? She tilted her head, thoughtful. Not to film, not to tell, but maybe, to remember. I didn't take photos. I didn't record voice memos. But the images burned into me. The girls laughing barefoot under trees. The chant around the fire. The quiet power in every movement. The silence that said more than any monologue I've heard. Nai walked with me halfway down the trail. We didn't speak much. Just before we parted, she stopped and said, "Out there, they will ask you what you saw. You will want to make it a story. But this is not a story. It is a choice, a way of surviving without forgetting who we are." I nodded, swallowing more than just the moment. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You come from a world where men speak loud. Here, we do not speak loud, we listen long. You did that, thank you." And with that, she turned and walked back into the mist. The hike out was quiet. My body moved, but my thoughts stayed behind. Back in Luang Prabang, surrounded by scooters, cafes, and tourists in elephant pants, I felt disoriented. Like I'd just left a different reality. In some ways, I had. Ban Namchan isn't a headline. It's not a curiosity. It's a question. What happens when women no longer wait to be led, and simply led? What happens when a village decides it would rather lose its men than lose its balance? And what happens when one man, from the outside, is trusted enough to see it? You don't walk away from that unchanged. I didn't. This story doesn't end with a twist. It ends with an echo, soft, steady, like a chant in the dark. And if you're quiet enough, maybe you'll hear it too. I'm Alex, and this was something else entirely. Thank you for listening, and if you ever get the chance to go somewhere you don't understand, don't go to explain it. Go to listen.